Assalamu alaikum. I am Firoz Ali, and today with me, Sir Farhan Jamil. He is the CEO of Sife Training. To start my topic, which is learning how to learn. So he helped those who have hurdles in their learning. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm good, Alhamdulillah. How about you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm fine too. So, sir, I have some of the questions regarding learning. So,
Okay.
my very first question is why some people have fast learning capabilities?
Okay. People, you must have seen that everybody is a different learner. I mean, when it comes to school, when it comes to colleges, universities, or even in life, people perform differently. And the performance depends on understanding of the process, understanding of the idea that you've got. So, for that thing, there comes the learning capability. For learning thing, the first thing that you should remember that people who do not perform well, I believe so, they just simply forgot about about the forgetting chart. I mean, there's a forgetting chart available that says whatever you listen to, you forget approximately 50% of that after an hour. So it means whatever you've listened to, you've read to, so whatsoever was the information, you are going to forget 50% of that information right after an hour. And after one day, 70% of that information will be vanished. So how much is left?
Yes.
If after one day only 30% information is left, so what do you think? How much information will left after 1 week, after 1 month, or after a year? So it means we are forgetting things day by day, day by day. We are forgetting things. There is so much information coming into mind. We are learning, learning, learning all the time. So what happens? Our brain does not absorb all the learning. So what the brain does, it forgets the past memories. It forgets the memory which is not important. So what happens? Even if you've learned something, it goes vanish. So to answer your question, why some of the people are good learner and some of the people are not good learner, just because they have applied few of the strategies. And I hope so we'll be discussing those strategies today in our session. For instance, let me tell you, there are two type of the memories that we have in a brain. First one is called short-term memory, and second one is called long-term memory. So people who are a good learner, they are good learner just because they can retain their information for a longer time period. So they know how to utilize the long-term memory of the mindset. So what I was saying, there are two types of memories: short-term memory and long-term memory. Short-term memory helps you to maintain the information for 1 day, 1 week, or might be at max a month. And the long-term memory helps you to retain the information for months, for years, or might be for decades. So it means first, if you are going to learn something, if you ask me, people who are the good learner, they somehow consciously, unconsciously, they follow the pattern of retaining or might be utilizing the both of the memory systems differently. That is how I perceive it.
Okay. So, my next question. Why, if a student has an exam after the day two, so how can we work smarter to make him more efficient?
Okay, just as I was talking about, like there are two types of the memories: short-term memory and long-term memory. So if a student is going to appear in the exam after 2 days, so it means he doesn't need the long-term memory. He doesn't need to work, or he doesn't need to do the stuff that is required to maintain the long-term memory. Now, because the other part, short-term memory, is gonna help him out after 2 days. For that thing, let me tell you, there is a repetition method. That is the first step of learning something that you can consider. That repetition method says, if you have your exam after 2 days, what you have to do, number one step, if you have read any information, you have to revise it the moment you have completed it. I mean, you read an information, you have completed one chapter. After that, you have to revise it at the same time. Is it clear? That's the first repetition. Second repetition would be after 1 hour, approximately, after 1 hour. Third repetition would be after 6 to 8 hours. Fourth repetition would be after 1 day. So what's going to happen when you have repeated something 4 times for following this what do we call that spaced repetition method? You are not going to forget that information. So review is the key. Revising the information is the key. So whatever you are trying to learn, you have to revise it. Because what people usually do, what students usually do, they read an information and after that they feel it like they've got it. And it seems like they've got it. But what happens after that? When they appear in the exam, they forget everything. So what is the key to retain the information? That is the revision. Revision. But if you want to retain something in the long-term memory, the process is different. The process would be number one, if we consider the spaced repetition method over here as well. Number one, you have to revise it the moment you have completed it. Number one. Number two, you have to revise it again after 3 to 4 hours, and then after that 1 day. The third repetition would be after 1 day, and the fourth repetition would be after 2 to 3 weeks. So you are going to retain that information for a longer time period. So spaced repetition method is going to help those students who are going to retain information for 2 days, let's suppose. And second most important thing, we always forget information or forget all the content or whatsoever we have read, we have listened to whenever we are in stress, we are in pressure. So pressure makes your brain work less effectively or make it least productive. It compromises the efficiency of your brain, of your mindset. So what you have to do is just like when we watch a movie or when we are watching a cricket match, we are so relaxed at that time. For example, if you're watching a movie, let's suppose, and you are enjoying your popcorn, you are sitting on might be the sleeper, and you are enjoying the movie. What happens over there? You retain the information for a longer time period. I mean, if you talk about the movie Titanic, when did you watch the movie? Years and years before, but you still remember the story. You talk about the movie Three Idiot, might be. You must have seen that movie 10 years before, but still you remember the story. What happened? What was the difference? Were you in pressure while you were watching the movie? You were not, because you knew it. There is no exam going to be happen. You knew it. I'm just doing it for my entertainment. So the first method is to follow the spaced repetition, which would be to revise it 4 times at least. Second is you have to relax yourself. Do not put yourself in pressure. Pressure is the poison. Pressure is a crime. Pressure is a sin. Do not ever take yourself in the pressure, because that is going to destroy your learning capability. So these are two suggestions from my
Okay,
side.
okay. Thank you so much. And my other question is, how can we understand what we learn to avoid cramming?
All right. To understand that, you will have to understand that there are two methods of learning. There are two patterns of learning. I'm going to explain you that as well. The first method is called shallow learning. Shallow learning says that you are taking the input again and again and again. You are taking the input all the time. For example, you are watching, might be motivational speaker, you are watching different mentors throughout the world, or might be you're reading the books being written by different successful people in the world. You're watching movies, let's suppose, which are going to help you, inspire you, motivate you, and to make you work on something, let's suppose, related to your field. Might be you're watching documentaries. You are just getting the information. You are getting information. That is the input, input, input. And if you would not think about the output, it's all going to be in vain. Because why do you need to understand that? That vision is not clear. That is called shallow learning. That creates a shallow. So it's only the input and there is no way out, which is not recommended. But if you want to avoid the cramming method, you don't want to memorize something, so the best method is to follow the deep learning. And deep learning method says that just like computer, there is an input, then you have to process it just like a computer. You give an input to the computer, computer processes it, and after that there comes the output. To elaborate it, let me tell you, just as I was saying, whenever you get an information, you need to process it. Process means you have to give that information your own meaning. You have to perceive it the way by connecting it to any other thing, might be to any reality, to any past event, any memory, anything. But you have to process that according to your own thinking capability. You have to process that to understand it. And then you also have to consider that what would be the output. I mean, you tell me, if you are reading an information that you have not to share, that you do not have to share it with anyone, would it be different? Or let's suppose if you are reading an information considering that I have to teach that tomorrow, what do you think? When the impact would be more better? When you have to teach
Second
it?
one,
Sorry?
the second one that
Second
I
one,
will
when you have to
understand.
teach it. So what happens?
Yeah.
What's the difference? What's the difference? When I am preparing or I'm reading something with this intention that I'm going to teach that tomorrow. So I will find out more interesting information from that. Number one, my vision, my aspect, my perception would be different about reading. Number three, I'll be more concerned what questions student can ask me tomorrow. And I'll be preparing myself for that as well. That is the output part. Where exactly do I have to present that information later on? Where do I have to share this information later on? Considering that output, you have to process your mind. And once you have processed it, only then your input would be more beneficial for you. So, first one was the shallow learning, in which you are just taking the information. You are not processing it by your own. You are not giving your own meaning to that. And you are not concerned about the output. Not recommended at all. Always consider the deep learning method that says you get an information, process it, and think about where exactly do you have to present that information. And for processing thing, let me tell you a very interesting thing. Our brain never processes anything in the words. Our brain always process things or information in pictures. We think in pictures. Our brain works in pictures. I mean, every single memory that you have in your mind, if you recall that, if you try to recall that, that would be a picture. That is the reason
Yes.
people usually say, oh, yeah, I know you, but I forgot your name. People never say, I know your name, but I forgot you. They never say that. They only say, I know
Yeah.
you. So, what does it actually mean? It means they remember the picture. Our brain is capable of memorizing the picture, but not the information, not the names, not the words, not the content, nothing but the picture. So, whenever you are getting an information, whenever you're getting an input, you have to process it by applying it on a picture. I mean, imagine, for instance, if you're reading a book, what happens? You're the best writer. They try to take you to the exact scene. I mean, if you're reading a book, if you're reading a novel, it seems like you are living that life. You go into that moment and you start imagining that. It has happened so many times with me that I have read a book, might be a novel, might be a story, and I still feel it like I lived that moment, but I did not ever live that moment because I was just reading it out. But how we really related, because we were actually creating images for that thing, and that is exactly why we watch movies as well. People have more interest in movies than reading a book, because book
Yes.
takes double the effort because you are not getting the images right over there. But when you watch a movie, you are getting all the information in the picture form already. And another reason, all the famous books, most successful books in the world, those movies, those books, or those novels have been converted into the movies. But it never happened that there is a successful movie and that has been converted into the book. It never happened. They always take
Yes.
book into movie,
Yeah.
they never take movie into the book, because movie itself is a picture part. So the idea, to put it in a nutshell, the crux of this saying is take an input, process it by taking it into any picture, into any scene, and imagining the reality of the information, and then think about the output. This is how you should take it. And if you're doing this, if you're following the deep learning method, you never need to cram anything. And everything that you have read, you have listened to, you have got the information that will stay into your mind for a longer time.
So we know that learning is connected to our mind. So how can we increase the efficiency of our mind?
Oh, that's a wonderful question. And I believe everybody should be really, really concerned about that. The way we are concerned about our cell phones. the way we are concerned about our relationships, the way we are concerned about the finances, we should also be concerned that how can we make our mindset more productive, more efficient. We have to take care few exercises. We need to understand how our brain or mind works. Number one thing, we have to take a proper sleep. 6 to 8 hours sleep is recommended. If you're taking less sleep, you are damaging the productivity of your mindset. That's the number one thing. Number two, just as we were talking in the beginning, never take pressure. A continuous pressure destroys your learning capability, destroys the capability of your mindset of performing well. Pressure is not good for our mindset. Number one, lack of sleep is not good for our mindset. Number three is, the 80% of our brain is water. 80% of our brain is water. So we have to drink more water. This is what we call in science and philosophy, they call it intellectual hydration. So it means we have to drink more water while we are learning. While even you must have seen throughout the world, whenever there is an exam going on, they do not serve you the food, but they serve you water. They serve you water in every exam in the whole world. Because when you are doing a mental work, your brain is getting dried. It requires water. So you have to water it by drinking water. So I believe these are the three things we should be careful all the time, and everybody. If a person is a doctor, engineer, lawyer, a businessman, a student, everybody should be taking care of the mindset. And how is that possible? I've given you three steps. There could be thousand more. And these are the three basic. Number one, take proper sleep. Drink as much water as you can because your brain itself needs the water. Number three, do not take pressure. And for that thing, we have to understand, or might be we have to take classes for stress management, pressure handling skill. That is really important, which is just not included in our education system at all. So I believe this is how you can improve the efficiency of your mindset.
Okay, including me, I hope that all of the students or all of the learners will take a lot of information from you and all of the motivational things that you are going to share with them to enhance their grades and to polish themselves. So thank you
Inshallah.
so much for your time. Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.